Hey everyone. Hey Facebook. I'm Lewis. I'm the CEO of Hammer Sport Marketing. And today I'm going to hop on and we're going to watch a Gary Vee video. This is something I kind of figured out when I was doing some meetings with the team. And it's that, hey, Gary Vee is tailoring his message to the masses, but he is still very, very well educated in the field of marketing and brand development. So he's still saying stuff that unless you're in marketing and unless you're studying this industry full time, some of the stuff is going to go over your head. And so it came to us that it was kind of cool to watch a video and stop it whenever there was an interesting topic that was brought up or an idea that I could elaborate on. So without further ado, let's do this. Here's Gary Vee.
I regret tremendously not spending all my money on Google in 2001 to 2004. When I rewound how I built my dad's business, it was because I was handed a full house. It was called Google, day one, 5 cents a click. My CAC was 10 cents, my LTV was $8. I didn't understand. You got your perspective. I just want to be happy. Don't you want to be happy?
So this is a while ago.
Something's become very obvious to me only in the last couple of weeks that maybe I'll pontificate a little bit here, which is I think the biggest reason so many people within the marketing landscape do have disagreements with some of my points of view is because I really don't think of myself as a marketer per se. I, no question, think of myself far more as a business operator who happens to have a knack or an intuition towards marketing, which has helped me throughout my career. But everything I believe in is predicated on the final result of what everybody in this room is trying to achieve. I just think that marketing and communications is an incredible way to get there. Put it right there, thanks, D-Rock. And so for a lot of you that don't know my career, I was born in the former Soviet Union. I came to the US and my father grew from being a stock boy to owning a small liquor store in New Jersey. And when I joined that business, I fell in love with wine and wine collecting, which was great because it's always good if you like what you're doing. But I built my dad's business from a $3 to a $60 million business very quickly in the late 90s without any VC capital, even without a credit line. When I think about how remarkable that growth was, it was completely predicated on practicality, which is really my North Star today. If I had the luxury to sit and have dinner or breakfast with you one-on-one for 4 hours and we actually talked about what you're trying to achieve in your business, so much of what I believe in, whether it's Facebook or Instagram or content or text messaging is starting to really be fascinating to me because in the US and many other markets for about a decade, we haven't allowed marketing inside of our text numbers. And all of a sudden I'm seeing people willing to do that, which you can imagine is attractive for us marketers and business people. So
that's just an awesome point that he brings up. And this is 2018. So it's only become more prevalent. I remember back in 2018, I was not receptive to marketing on text messages. That's changed. If you do it right, you can get responses and get engagement on text messaging. So, but once again, he'll talk about this more in the video and I'm going to talk about it more. You have to maintain relevancy towards the channel that you're communicating on. So if you're going to get into SMS marketing and send text messages, you need to be keenly aware of, where they are on the spectrum, the awareness spectrum, and where they are on the event spectrum. Meaning you have to speak towards the group, but you have to speak to them knowing what their context is at that moment in time. So if you're trying to send selling messages to a group who doesn't even know who you are, then that's not going to work. You know, we learned this all from Gary and from other people, Seth Godin and similar, that, you know, sending conversion messages to cold traffic, while that's what you all see on Facebook, that is not the way to do this. Do not do what you're seeing others do. Warm up your traffic, create a relationship with them, and then send them messages. And the same thing holds true for SMS messaging. Nobody is gonna, it's not gonna work if they don't know who you are. So that's the key there, is send messages that are brand development messages that are based on getting them to know, like, and trust you, not asking for the sale. Sorry, went off a little long there, but I think it's worth it.
I think the biggest reason I'm, you know, interesting in debating in the marketing.
Hey, and don't forget, I'm watching the comments here. It doesn't matter what channel you're watching this on right now. If you comment, I will see them. And if you see something that Gary Vee says that you're interested in or you don't understand, go ahead and throw it in the comments. I'll see it pop up. I'll stop the video and I'll address what you're speaking about.
Landscape is, I'm not a product or a son of Nielsen ratings or Datalogix or brand lift studies or impressions or drop, you know, if you knew nothing about marketing and you were a normal business person, you wouldn't be attracted to low CPMs. You would be attracted to high CPMs because it would lead to what you're trying to achieve. So I sit in marketing meetings for major clients around the world. I sit at conferences, events like this, and people pontificate on data in the middle that has nothing to do with the end business result. That is my problem. That is why I'm an outlier.
Okay, CPMs are cost per mil, so cost per thousand. And why did he say, like, you know, as Facebook people, we look at our CPMs to make sure that we're getting in front of an audience for a low cost per mil, cost per 1,000. But what he just said is, like, look, when you're going after the low CPMs, you're also not competing against anybody else, meaning you're talking to an audience that everybody else in your industry isn't talking to right now. So if you're selling boots and I go and set up my audience on Facebook to be, if I'm selling winter boots and I set up my audience on Facebook to be people in Florida or people who love wearing flip-flops, then I'm going to get really low CPMs. And I'm not going to get any response. I'm not going to build an audience of people that care anything about my product, and I'm not going to sell anything. So what he's saying there, or what he said there, is, you know, going after, if you don't know this stuff, then you're going to be drawn towards high CPMs, and rightly so, because that means you're speaking to the correct audience.
That's why I'm different. I'm not of the machine, I'm of the business result. I'm not, you know, it's really interesting. By only running businesses for myself my whole life, I only care about long-term branding and marketing. A lot of times people think about digital as a short-term sales funnel. I think of it as reverse. I think Facebook and Instagram, and thank you so much for being a part of this, but I think that they're doing not a good job in expressing how much branding is done in their channels, because the conversion is so obvious for math and sales. When I think about this room, whatever.
So do you see what he's talking about right there is the difference between conversion messages and branding messages. And he's out of Facebook, and he's through the lens is set up by Facebook and Instagram. You can see it right there on the thing. And he said, hey, sorry, Facebook and Instagram, thanks for putting this on, but you guys are doing a horrible job of telling the world how important it is to do brand development and branding. And why? Because there's no attractive metrics assigned to branding messages, because they literally don't let you buy anything. But this goes back to what we believe and know to be true in marketing, which is digital marketing is most effective when it respects the sales process. That's empathetic marketing, and empathetic marketing respects the sales process, which means that you never send a conversion message until they know, like, and trust you. In fact, you don't even send a conversion message until they know, like, and trust you. And then you discover through a series of questions and empathy, you discover what their problems are. And then you show them how your product or service is the solution that they need. And then you overcome all the natural objections that you obviously, if you're experienced in the industry, already know that are going to come up. I mean, you should be able to list your objections. And then you do a conversion message. So how many, like, you understand what I'm saying here, but now start to watch the ads you see on Facebook. Watch how disrespectful they are. I mean, it's ludicrous for somebody to ask you to buy something that's over $5 if you don't know who they are. And that's where brand development comes in, and branding by sending messages that have to do more with purpose than with benefits and features.
Whatever it may be, the business result that one's trying to achieve, I watch so many of your behaviors globally in overspending for A-list celebrities in Hollywood that don't have the value they used to, in overspending in quant-based transactional Google and Facebook behavior where CAC and LTV are the religion and branding is not. I watch a lot of things that if I bought your business or if I ran it, I wouldn't believe in, but everything in the system, everything that the marketing industry has been built on for the last half century values things that I just don't think are mapping to reality. I'm fresh eyes to this industry. I've only been in an environment where big companies have been part of my life for the last decade. Prior to that, it was only entrepreneurship in Silicon Valley. And so it's been an amazing journey for me the last half decade in watching what is put on a pedestal in an environment when you don't see every dollar spent where it goes to, what happens when you fall too deep into just caring about the value of every dollar in the short term. It's, to be honest, for my DNA, it's a bizarro world. An industry that goes to the south of France to celebrate itself on subjective creative and uses those awards to justify hundreds of millions of dollars in spend is fascinating.
I love Gary Vee. He has no problem just lighting people on fire to say, you guys are insane. But he's right. He's like, look, because the only reason these conversion tactics work on people is because not everybody is wise to the game yet. But it's not going to last forever. And frankly, it's also not the way to grow a successful business that's going to last forever. So, and also that these companies that you're seeing do this advertising, that is just a conversion message. Hey, it doesn't matter that you don't know who I am. All my customers love me and I've got these results and you should buy from me right now. That is detrimental to brand. So that's why he said, look, if I was going to buy these businesses, people don't buy businesses because experienced people don't buy businesses because they had a fantastic marketing strategy that sold $1 million. They buy businesses that have a developed brand where a purpose can be seen in their sales and in their company and in their culture, because that's stability. Brand is stability.
And I think the giggles come from a deep understanding of the truth. And so here we are in 2019, whether in the UAE, America, Europe, all over the world, you have a game of two individuals. You have people who are spending money and it's not their business, and you have people that are spending money and that's how they feed their family. And those two people, the way they spend their money and what they believe in, have never been more opposite than today. And that's what I'm fascinated by. The people that are incentivized of the health of the business in the short and long term versus the people that are incentivized on the KPIs within the machine that they have to navigate through. I deploy empathy. I used to judge a lot of people in this room on paper a decade ago. I thought I was smarter. I know I'm not smarter. I just know that I'm playing a different game. I'm running a marathon in perpetuity. I put out content to be historically correct so I can trade on reputation in a decade, not on what pays my bills in the short term. So I have the advantage of the framework that I've stumbled into within this environment.
So you can disagree with me or disagree with him, and you're not wrong, because everybody needs to pay their bills today, and it's very hard to go against the temptation to use these digital marketing strategies and systems to get rich fast. But he just laid it out for you there. I mean, other than this, name another place where it's good to think in the short term as far as business. Name another industry. Name another, a dominating brand within an industry that played the game of conversion metrics versus lifetime value of a customer. There aren't many.
But it doesn't make it any less true. And so a couple things that I would if you leave with anything, the one word I would leave with if you're in here today is volume. The sheer volume of content that is needed by the businesses in this room is staggering. It's staggering. If you get your above the line creative agency to interpret your TV and make a ton more content for the internet, if you have a digital shop that does a lot of content, if you do publishing deals where Condé or Hearst or Refinery or PureWow are giving you content, if you build internal capabilities for content, if you have all four of those things humming, you're still 90% short on how much content you need in a 2019 world if you understand how the Googles and Facebooks and Snapchats actually work. If you are a deep practitioner of the media capabilities of 2019 across the biggest platforms, which, oh, by the way, in this region have so much attention, it's uncomfortable. If you really understand that, you'll realize, my God, I need 20,000, 8,000 unique pieces of content for different psychographic, demographic individuals. And as you all know, even Vayner, which I'm trying to move in the direction of being the disproportionate leader in quality and quantity, there's no engine in the world right now that's even remotely close to the needs that we actually have. So that to me is the big one. That to me is, in the last 6 months, the thing that is
So there's two thoughts of school in content production. There's everything needs to be quality, curated, and look like a television production. And then there's Gary Vee, who says he himself hasn't even put out nearly enough content. And so the reason he says, I've watched a lot of these videos, so I get what he's saying. The reason he says that is because you have a lot of different cohorts, meaning partners, meaning your future customers or your current prospects, a lot of different demographics that can actually use your product or service. And so the trick is to identify your avatars, your cohorts, identify as many of them as possible that are valid, that could bring you significant revenue. And when you do that, and you really start to get into the needs analysis of your avatars, meaning like, what are their psychological or emotional needs, and how does your product or service meet those needs? When you do this analysis across a bunch of different avatars, you're going to find the magical few where the same message can be used to speak to a 26-year-old single male and to a 46-year-old married with children female, but the same message resonates with both of them. That's when you find the marketing messages that can multiply your revenue by single or even double digits. That's why Apple is so successful. They found a niche market, or they found an emotional connection that so many different people worldwide can attach themselves to and feel like an individual, yet they're speaking to a huge group. So that's the goal here. That's what the name of the game in marketing is finding those cohorts, learning how to speak to them, and finding which ones are significantly different than each other, but are receptive to the same message.
Absolutely synthesized, which is, my God, if you really did it perfect, you know, and you really spent it every penny the way I did for my father's business perfect, you need 20,000 pieces of meaningful content for a year. That's about 19,900 more than most people have. And so that, I think, will be the debate over the next half decade. How do you have quality content at scale to take advantage of the grossly underpriced media capabilities of the YouTubes, the Snapchats, the Facebooks, and the Instagrams over the next half decade? Then consumer behavior will change, either, to our hosts' hope, the prices become appropriate like they did on Google search, or people's attention will move on like it was on MySpace. That I don't know. I don't guess. I only trade on the day we live in. What I know is, if you look at the sheer data of what's happening in this region specifically, and this is global outside of mainland China and Russia, if you look at the sheer actual consumption, not a GRP or an impression, which is a potential reach, but actual reach. If you just look at YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and Snapchat, this is the golden era to market in this region, and most people are not taking advantage of it because either A, they've allocated dollars to traditional places based on reports of yesterday, or B, even if they are, it's not successful because they don't have enough content to fill the pipes of the media distribution. That to me is what's going on.
You mentioned about how much of the content is actually made for utility or how much of it is actually made for ourselves, right?
How much is made for them or for yourselves? I think utility and entertainment can be made for them. I think that if you look at a lot of the communications in this room, I'm sure if you were to self-audit, you'd be surprised how much is self-serving.
Exactly, and that's the point I want to come to, right? There's a level of awareness that companies need to have in terms of what they're doing inside their organizations for their own ego, and how do you instill something, a culture in an organization that they're actually aware of what they're doing for themselves versus for their...
That's very hard. You do that by whoever runs the company sets that tone. Every company's DNA is predicated on the CEO. Whoever she or he is, they're gonna dictate that. So if she or he are disproportionately egotistical around subjective creative, the whole organization will go up that. I think that, you know, that's something outside the pay grade of like.
Let's talk about subjective creative. He keeps saying that, and so you need to know what it is. And he spoke of the Cannes Film Festival, where everybody goes and looks at the advertisements that they all made and rates each other on how awesome they were. So he's just talking about subjective creative, meaning creative that isn't tested, like creative that you're not putting up against other creative to see which one is more effective to attaining your intent. So remember, intent is first. You figure out what are you intending to do with this piece of content, and then you build the content to try to meet that goal or intent, and then you test it up against other pieces of content. But if you're just subjectively making creative that everybody in the room is clapping to, but isn't doing anything, i.e. getting people to go to your website or getting them to purchase your product or getting to them to understand what your values are or having them understand that you have a deeper purpose in this other than selling your widget, you know, those are intents. And so you need to build content to have that intent. And he's deeply against anything but that.
Marketing that is just absolutely operational throughout the entire world. You know, what is being held up as a religion internally is fascinating. Looking at the, you know, knowing who's in this room, you're either mathed out or you're art out. You know, there are very few organizations that have a 50-50 balance. You either have a DNA internally that disproportionately wants celebrities from Hollywood and wants a 1-minute video that feels good, or you're disproportionately Google and emailed out for CAC and LTV. And I'm fascinated why most organizations haven't found that 50-50 balance and understanding how both matter. And then more importantly, how do we actually score within that, right? Creative scorecard is laughable. It's human subjectiveness or reports that are so laughably outdated, or finally awards, or finally 3 or 4 magazines that say it's a good piece of creative. Like the way we judge is, meanwhile, we live in a world where you can put this creative in a Facebook or YouTube environment and you can get qualitative feedback at scale and just listen to the customer instead. The problem is
Like,
most
why
people
wouldn't you
start
do
top
that?
down, not bottom up. So you overspend so heavily on one video that you're at the mercy of reporting or Ipsos or ACE testing or all these things that are just, again, if you don't know anything about them like I didn't 8 years ago, and you actually study him, first time I ever heard award-winning work leads to business results, which was like a big debate I heard in the advertising world. I just had 2 people on my team in research and strategy find out where that started. It was funded by agencies. Sounds right. And so I think those are the themes of today, no question.
Agencies that want to
themes
spend
in terms of
100,000 and
risks,
sell
right?
you
We're
$1
seeing
million
huge
video.
disruption across lots of different industries, Uber, Airbnb, etc. How can companies try to identify the shifts that are going to come, these tectonic shifts that are taking place, and what should they do about it?
Well, I think everybody here should take a very simple stance like I did a long time ago, which is that the internet will eliminate the middle. Right? If you actually understand what the internet does in its most basic form, it eliminates anybody in the middle that provides no value. That's the squeeze. So for me, I think everybody in this room needs to think about a couple things. If the internet squeezes the middle, that's how it plays out. Airbnb made so much sense to me. If you think about it, it's just inventory.
Here, and I can't tell you why all the reasons the internet squeezes the middle, but I know one reason for fact. It's when you don't have a brand, people do not want to listen to you because most people don't need your product or service right now. And everybody is fighting over the people who do need your product and service right now. So a huge way to win the game is to stop competing with your competitors over the people who need your product and service right now and build a huge audience of people that will need your product in the near future, and then brand to them and bring them value, bring them entertainment, bring them information that they need that is pertinent to their life right now. Because remember, they don't need you yet. You don't bring them information that they need when they need you, because that's benefits and features about the product or service that you sell. You bring them information that you know they need because of where they're at in their life right now. You build value, you build that audience, and then you tell them offhandedly, by the way, when you need me for this product, I'll be sitting over here waiting to help you. We're here to serve. And that's it. And so the internet gets rid of the middle because the middle is still talking to everybody like they need your product or service. And they don't. So it crushes the middle because people go on the internet to be entertained. And if they're not getting entertained and they're not getting value, and all they're hearing from the middle is, hey, my product's the best, you should buy it right now. Well, then Facebook's going to charge you $20 an ad, and you're not going to be able to afford it anymore. And so you're going to get kicked off the platform.
That exists that the internet connected two parties to. No different than Uber, no different than everything else. And so, listen, if you're an airline, obviously somebody has to then own a plane, and that becomes a cog that's more expensive than other things. But rooms have less costs involved, as we've seen play out. And then you start getting into experiences and other variables, but you can't just rely on the utility part of that. You've got to layer it. It's kind of how I think about what's happened with television. It's the reason I knew that commercials were going to be in trouble. It's not that I'm predicting. It's every day that you see Netflix and YouTube consumption numbers go up, that's a problem for a network television. And then you just live in common sense. Like, consuming a commercial during a television program is a very wild rarity in 2019, when we all have mobile devices. I always laugh when people in the US say, but sports commercials are good. Meanwhile, the data is very black and white. The biggest spike on social media is during the commercials of major sporting events because everybody wants to talk about what LeBron or Messi or Tom Brady did, right? And so, it just feels like one big game of inside baseball where there's a lot of financial incentives to hold up a facade that no longer exists. And unfortunately, for the biggest brands in the world, the executives making the financial decisions are not incentivized to do the right thing. They're incentivized to follow the scoring that's been created internally. That's on the CEO's head.
So given
all that stuff right there, that just shows you that if you start to understand what he's talking about, you can crush it. Because the biggest corporations in the world are laying down right now. They're not doing what the internet is telling them to do, what the stats are telling them to do, what the information is, what the facts are telling them to do. So you just learn this stuff and you can crush it. You just can't crush it tomorrow because Gary Vee plays the long game and so do we. So it's playing the long game just means you're going to crush it 5 years from now and then every year from then on.
The shifts that you're talking about, explain some of the other steps that you would take if you were a marketeer, given the environment you just painted.
It's funny, a lot of people razz on me for my absolute statements, but I think of marketing like poker. If you have the best hand, you go in. I'm a boy, and I would say a boy because this is what I was a kid when this happened. I am unbelievably, I regret tremendously not spending all my money on Google in 2001 to 2004. When I rewound how I built my dad's business, it was because I was handed a full house. It was called Google, day one, 5 cents a click. My CAC was 10 cents, my LTV was $8. I didn't understand because I didn't know. I didn't have experience yet. I didn't know how to quantify it. It seemed normal to me. I was digitally native. This seemed like it made sense. Why wouldn't everybody do this? And then it went away. And then 2007, 8, 9 happened. So for me, we're sitting in that moment right now. Instagram story ads are so grossly underpriced, it's almost uncomfortable. I'm running, actually, this is amazing. Maha, are you in here? Where are you? Yeah, you know this. In 4 minutes, in 5 days.
So let me just review on that. If you don't know these terms, then really quickly, LTV is lifetime value and CAC is customer acquisition cost. So what Gary said there is when he was doing his, the live wine stuff, I don't even know the name. Anyways, this is how he, took his father's wine selling company in New Jersey or wine store from 3 million to 60 million in a year in 5 years. Was he just went on YouTube. What he didn't know was that he was being handed what he called the full house, which was 10-cent customer acquisition cost. Like he got new customers for 10 cents a piece. Like that's insane. With a lifetime value of, like, I think he said $8 or something. You know what that means? 10 cents to $8. That's 10 times 10. That's 80 times return on your customer acquisition. Oh, I mean, that's life changing. That's why he went from 3 to 60.
My follow count on my Gary Vee Arabic page went from 900 people to 30,000. 700 people to 30,000 because we found a single piece of content that I converted into Arabic from a piece of content that is achieving 1.9 cent follows on Instagram. If you understand how like the friction to get somebody to follow you based on an impression, think about how inexpensive I'm getting in front of every Arabic speaking person that is on Instagram to get 1.9 cent follows. So when I found out on a $200 spend that was working, I just poured all my money into it. And by the way, I'm gonna pour all my money into it in perpetuity because I wanna extract the underpriced nature of the media. And I figured out how to create the.
When he says all my money into it, he doesn't mean literally all his money. What he means is he's gonna test that system, and he's going to increase his spending as long as the cost of follow acquisition doesn't follow a bell curve. So, you know, he might double his cost and go up to a 2.5 cent per follow cost. But when he sees a doubling in ad spend, but a 10x in customer acquisition, then he's going to back it back down till when he gets down back to that ridiculously low cost of follow. So that's what he means when he says, I'm going to put all my money in. I'm going to put as much money into it as that system allows, while still getting the incredible deal that he was getting on that metric.
Volume of content that broke through to eventually get me a 1.9 cent follow, because we've gotten on our 30th piece of content, we got there, not on our first. People are making one video and then putting it on YouTube and Facebook and then saying, does it work or not? We're not producing creatively, natively, contextually to the platforms that we're advertising on.
Producing natively?
We're using television mentality. Does it work or not? We're not producing creatively, natively, contextually.
Creatively, natively, contextually to the platform that you're producing on. So like I said, you can't give the same message on a text message as you give on YouTube. It has to be, the creative has to be contextual to the platform. The other thing he's saying there is, you know, Facebook lets you test videos against each other for the same cost of just running the video, right? If you didn't know that, call me up and I'll show you how to kill it. Because having one piece of content that was $10,000 to cost and that to produce, and then running that, versus creating 10,000 divided by 100 is 100, creating 100 pieces of content that cost $100 to create, your chances of finding the successful piece of content that gives you the really low cost of customer acquisition or clicks or follows or website views, whatever it is that you're going for with that ad campaign, you're just going to have a lot better result. Same thing with landing pages, same thing with everything, same thing with copywriting. You know, the days of the masterful copywriter are, you know, they're awesome. And if they can prove that they have great results and you want to pay them $20,000 to write your sales letter or your landing page or something, that's great. The other thing that you can just do is actually test pieces of copy using different analytical tools that are out there that are practically free. And you can learn by sending, you know, half of the people to your website go to this version of your website, half of the people go to this version of your website. And then 2 weeks later, you get to see what the bounce through rate is on each of those websites, and see that this one, result A, people left in the first 30 seconds, and result B, people stayed there for 5 minutes. The results are conclusive. You go with the B, and then you move to the next phase of testing. So if you're in marketing and you're not working with a company who's doing these types of testing,
to the platforms that we're advertising on, we're using television mentality for the internet. It's just, it's remarkably wrong, and not even Vayner, and let alone all the traditional agencies, are not in a position to create the work needed for the realities of the marketplace.
So talk us through a couple of things there. You mentioned Instagram, and obviously there's a shift towards video. Talk us through creating great content for that. And also, in an increasingly mobile world, can you build a brand on mobile alone?
Of course you can, because you can build a brand on attention. And the sheer amount of attention on mobile is extraordinary. As a matter of fact, why would, to me, like when I look at outdoor, and I like outdoor. There was a nice little digital outdoor of me speaking today. I get excited about that. I like outdoor. But I don't like outdoor pricing in a world where, while I saw my little outdoor piece, I looked around the cars on the way here, and every single person not driving was looking at their phone. I'm even the drivers, to your point. I'm a very simple guy. Tell me where the attention is. Tell me what the cost is associated with it. Do I think that's right? Can I then create creative to fill it at a low enough cost that I can test 7, 10, 15. This is not A/B testing. This is A to quadruple Z testing.
Do you guys get that? Like, you don't have to do A/B testing anymore if you create enough creative.
So for me, it's about producing quality content at a low enough cost. Quality being contextual and empathetic, not high production. Let me say that very slow because it's super important. Quality being contextual to the distribution and being empathetic. You have to know how to overlay a sticker or an animated GIF on an Instagram story to get people's attention because that's native to that platform. Not doing matching luggage of your TVC for a short form 15-second video for YouTube. That's what big companies do.
Yeah, talk us through how companies are getting it wrong. You mentioned there what you can do.
They start with television. You've already lost. So you make a TVC or a brand campaign, and then you ask somebody, whether it's that agency or somebody else or internally, to cut it down for Facebook and Instagram and YouTube. You're already in trouble for a couple reasons. By nature, brand campaigns and television are vanilla because you're trying to reach everybody with the reach of that campaign. If you start from the bottom, you can go after expats from the UK versus expats from the US. As you can imagine, if you know that that's who you're gonna reach, your message is gonna be slightly different. I'm filming right.
Do you guys get that? See, it's television is mass media and mass market communications. So they're literally going, oh man, who uses our product? Oh, people who watch football use our product. Well, now you're only talking about an age group from 15, maybe 12, maybe even 6, all the way to like laying in their deathbed. So 95. So you've got a huge scope. And you're going to create a message that speaks to all of them. I mean, that can be done eventually. That's how Apple won, but they didn't, and maybe they started there, but that's why you're not supposed to copy Apple in their strategy, because it takes a genius and years of testing to get there. What he said is you start by identifying those cohorts, as he calls them, or avatars who have a specific, who are an imaginary version of a real person that has specific demographics and psychographics, meaning interests and feelings. And you develop a message that meets their specific needs. Every person has different needs depending on where they're at within their life or within their, today's financial situation. So if you can create a message that speaks directly to that person, you can run it. The reason this works is because the cost of advertising on all of these different platforms is so low.
Now, everywhere I go, me and D-Rock, like I'm standing outside with these beautiful views, we were here a little early, and I'm saying, hey, Snapchat, find out why I'm here at the UAE. I'm literally filming for the distribution.
I'm filming
just
over
by
there
saying
right
what's up Facebook as my opening line disproportionately increases the shareability and earned media because I made the creative native to the distribution. I didn't make one video that's gonna be super glossy and then try to use everything. Everybody views these channels as distribution. I view them as contextual creative platforms. I'm not trying to get reach that isn't achieved because I didn't make content for it. Everybody's playing in a GRP and reach world without having a common sense layer over it of, are you actually getting that reach? And then number 2, does your content speak to that reach? We didn't have that with television. But now I can.
Okay, so while this was all happening, I received some text message marketing. It is contextual to the platform we're using, and it's contextual as well to the event or time that it was sent. Let me read it to you. It's really good. You have 21 beer points expiring soon. Track your Sun Creek Brewery status at this website. Text end to opt out. So I don't remember where Sun Creek Brewery is, but I have 21 beer points expiring soon. And if I don't go there and use those beer points or add to them, I'm going to lose them. So I'm missing out on free or cheaper beer. And they didn't send me this on Friday morning. I received this today at 1:15 p.m., which is Friday. And it was very short, didn't take up a lot of my time, and it was relevant because it's Friday afternoon and people like to go drink beer on Friday afternoon or Friday evening.
I can attack the 7 million people in this market in 31 cohorts that matter. Men and women are different. 18-year-olds are different than 49-year-olds. Making $1 million a year is different than making $40,000 a year. We do not take that into account in creative because creative costs are too high. Machines for creative aren't built for scale. That is the rub in our industry. The media people know this.
If you figure this out, if you figure out how to overcome what he just was talking about there, that media is not built to scale because it's expensive. However you figure that out is going to be a big game changer for you.
I announced our framework that leads off of what I'm talking about in September, where I started my company meeting with, I'm going to put us out of business before somebody else does. It was the media people that most like this creative strategy. The creative people like to hold on to the political power of making a subjective call, not letting the market's reactions, quant and qual, dictate creative adjustment. So it's a very, very interesting time right now. We have way too many conversations in the ad world about the media side of things. We are not having the proper conversation of the subconscious bias against the wrong creative process for this world.
Yeah, go check Gary Vee out, because if you don't, you're missing out. So, hey everyone, thanks for tuning in a little bit today. I hope this was a little bit valuable. If you watch this later on, definitely leave some content, some messages in the comment section. If you do, because you have questions or comments, I'd love to see what they are, and I'd love to help you answer them. I believe, and we believe at Hammer Sport Marketing, that this stuff is very, very important. That's why we started this company. We're sick of seeing big, huge companies get all of the business. There's a lot of small business owners out there who provide very, very valuable services to their local community and to society in general. And if they don't get online, and if they don't start using these techniques, and if they fall prey to the digital marketing suckers that tell them they need to be sending conversion messages, and if they don't build a brand, they're not going to make it. And so it's our mission here to change the way people look at businesses by building brands that give more than they take. I can help you do that, and it'd be my honor to do so. So thanks again. Have a wonderful weekend.